The day I found out that my wife, Jane, had an affair with a coworker, Chad, was the day my life fell apart into a million sharp fragments. The agony bit into my chest like a vicious beast and would not go away. I had come home early from work on this lovely afternoon with the plan of surprising Jane with a bouquet of her favorite flowers. Little did I know the surprise would be on me. As I entered our dimly lit living room, my footsteps echoed through the empty space. Jane's phone sat on the coffee table, its screen lighting up with messages from a coworker named Chad. Curiosity piqued, I picked up the phone and saw a stream of messages that revealed a secret I never wanted to know. They were love notes, filled with affectionate words, plans for secret rendezvous, and explicit promises. My heart raced, and anger surged through my veins. My fingers trembled as I scrolled through the damning evidence. I had to confront her, but I needed a plan. That's when the idea of revenge took root in my mind. I couldn't let her off the hook for her betrayal without suffering the same agony that she had caused me. Using Jane's phone, I dialed Chad's number, my voice shaking with repressed anger. "Hi there, Chad. This is the spouse of Jane. We must speak." On the other end, Chad sounded nervous. "Sure, what's going on? We must get together in person," I replied, my voice steady. "I think you and I have some business to settle." The tension was palpable as Chad agreed to meet at a nearby coffee shop later that evening. The stage was set for my plan of double-date revenge, and I couldn't wait to see the shock on Jane's face when she realized what I had in store for her. After that fateful afternoon when I discovered Jane's affair, I couldn't shake the desire for revenge. I needed to make her feel the same pain and betrayal that had consumed me, but I knew I couldn't do it alone. That's when I reached out to Sarah, Chad's wife, through a private message on Facebook. She deserved to know the truth about her husband, just as much as I did. A few days later, Sarah and I met in a cozy, dimly lit coffee shop tucked away in a quiet corner of the city. The air was heavy with anticipation as we shared stories of our spouse's deceit. The bitterness of betrayal leaves a bitter taste in our mouths. "I can't believe they did this to us," Sarah said, her eyes welling up with tears. "We deserve better." I nodded in agreement, my own anger still simmering beneath the surface. "We can't let them get away with this. We have to show them what they've lost." As we sipped our coffees, we began to brainstorm a plan. We needed a way to make Jane and Chad realize the depth of their betrayal, to make them feel the pain that had been inflicted upon us. After hours of conversation and careful consideration, we came up with a bold idea, a fake double date that would make our cheating spouses insanely jealous. Sarah leaned in, her eyes gleaming with determination. "Are you in?" I took a deep breath and nodded. "I'm in, Sarah. Let's do this. They won't know what hit them." We had our strategy in place, and as we left the coffee shop that day, we were filled with both excitement and anxiety about what was ahead. Though we were aware of the significant hazards, the idea of getting even was too alluring to ignore. We had no idea how far we would go in order to bring our strategy to fruition. When the evening of our painstakingly organized double date finally arrived, tension and excitement were in the air. Sarah and I had dressed up to the nines, ensuring that we looked our best for the evening's performance. We chose a charming, dimly lit bar that Jane and Chad frequented, hoping they would show up. As we entered the bar, our hearts raced, and our palms were clammy with nervousness. We exchanged glances, silently reassuring each other that we could pull this off. Our plan was to act as a couple deeply in love, sharing affectionate gestures and intimate moments, all while accidentally encountering Jane and Chad. The atmosphere inside the bar was electric, the low hum of chatter and clinking glasses providing a backdrop for our audacious scheme. We carefully positioned ourselves at the bar, keeping a close eye on the entrance. Time seemed to slow as we waited. And then, as if fate itself were playing its part, Jane and Chad walked in, their laughter echoing through the bar. Our hearts pounded in our chests as we made our move, Sarah took my arm, her fingers trembling ever so slightly. "Remember, we have to make this convincing," she whispered. I nodded, my adrenaline-fueled determination driving me forward. As we strolled past Jane and Chad's table, our fingers brushed together in a subtle caress, and we shared an affectionate smile that reached our eyes. The shock on their faces was immediate and profound, as if they'd been slapped across the face. Jane's eyes widened, and she froze mid-sentence, her jaw dropping. Chad's beard nearly slipped from his hand, and he stared at us, open-mouthed. We continued our act, finding a table nearby, and engaged in animated conversation as if we were on the most romantic date of our lives. As the minutes ticked by, Jane and Chad's discomfort became increasingly apparent. They exchanged uneasy glances, whispered to each other, and couldn't hide their agitation. It was working, just as we had planned. Our daring performance continued, punctuated by stolen glances and soft laughter. The tension in the bar was palpable, a silent storm of emotions swirling around our cheating spouses. As we sipped our drinks and carried on with our charade, I couldn't help but feel a twisted sense of satisfaction. The revenge was sweet, and we were relishing every moment of it. Little did we know that the night was far from over, and the true confrontation was yet to come. The tension in the bar had reached a fever pitch as Jane and Chad, our cheating spouses, struggled to make sense of the scene playing out before them. They were agitated and unsettled by our well-planned double date, so it was time to escalate things. Jane was crying too much to contain herself. Her chair scraped the floor as she sprang up suddenly, and her voice trembled with a mixture of despair and rage as she spoke to me. "How could you do this to me, Mark? What is going on here?" Chad, on the other hand, was lost for words. His face contorted with frustration as he glared at Sarah, searching for an explanation that would elude him. He stammered, "Sarah, what the hell is happening?" Sarah and I exchanged a knowing look before I stood up. My expression was a mix of righteous anger and hurt. "Oh, you don't get to play the victim here, Jane," I retorted, my voice cold and biting. "You cheated on me, remember? This is just a taste of the pain you've put me through." Sarah chimed in, her voice steady and filled with conviction. "And Chad, you betrayed our marriage too. You both deserve to know how it feels to have your trust shattered." The bar's patrons have fallen silent, their curious eyes fixed on our dramatic confrontation. Jane and Chad were clearly rattled, caught off guard by our audacity and the public nature of their exposure. Jane's face crumpled as she wiped away her tears. "I never thought you'd do something like this, Mark. I was wrong, but this is too much." Chad struggled to find words, his voice strained. "I messed up, Sarah. But did it really have to come to this? Our mission had been accomplished. The pain and humiliation we had intended to inflict on Jane and Chad were now starkly evident. They had been forced to confront the consequences of their actions, and it wasn't easy for them to bear. As Jane fled the bar in tears, her footsteps echoing through the silence, Chad was left speechless and defeated. Our revenge had succeeded, but the aftermath was a tangled web of emotions and uncertainties. We had set out to make them feel our pain, and now it was time to pick up the pieces and move forward, leaving behind the wreckage of our broken marriages. In the aftermath of our audacious double date and the emotional confrontation that followed, Sarah and I found ourselves unexpectedly bonded by our shared experience of betrayal. What had initially been a vengeful plan to make our cheating spouses feel the pain they had inflicted on us had transformed into something quite unexpected, a genuine friendship. In the days that followed, Sarah and I continued to meet, not to plot revenge, but to support each other through the difficult process of divorcing our unfaithful spouses. We discovered that we had more in common than just the pain of infidelity, our love for hiking, a shared passion for classic literature, and a fondness for spicy Thai food. One sunny afternoon, we decided to go for a hike in a nearby forest preserve. As we made our way along the winding trail, the conversation flowed easily between us. Sarah chuckled, her eyes filled with amusement. You know, Mark, if someone had told me a month ago that I'd be hiking with the husband of the man my husband cheated with, I would have thought they were crazy. I smiled in response, the weight of the past few weeks finally beginning to lift. Life has a funny way of throwing unexpected twists at us. But I'm glad we met, Sarah. You've been a true friend when I needed it the most. Sarah's eyes softened with gratitude. Likewise, Mark. It's been a tough journey, but I'm grateful we've been able to lean on each other. As we continued our hike, the camaraderie between us deepened. We shared stories of our lives, our dreams, and our hopes for the future. It was a refreshing change from the pain and betrayal that had dominated our recent history. Over time, our friendship grew stronger, becoming a source of comfort and support as we navigated the complexities of starting anew. We were no longer driven by revenge, but by the genuine connection we had forged in the midst of our shared turmoil. Little did we know that life had more surprises in store for both of us, and that our friendship would continue to play a crucial role in the chapters that lay ahead. It had been a year since the events of our first story, and my life had taken a promising turn. I had met Emma, a woman who rekindled my belief in love, and after a whirlwind romance, we decided to get married. Our wedding day was magical, and it seemed like we were destined for a lifetime of happiness. However, as fate would have it, our honeymoon would turn into a nightmare. We had chosen a picturesque, secluded island for our honeymoon, a place where we hoped to create cherished memories. The sun was setting on our first evening there when I discovered the truth I had dreaded. My heart sank like a stone as I watched them, frozen in shock and disbelief, as Emma's laughter and their close embrace served as a painful reminder of the betrayal I had suffered before. I had taken a quick walk along the shore and returned to our beachfront bungalow to find Emma in a compromising position with a stranger she had met earlier that day. I couldn't bear to confront her in that moment, so I did something I never thought I would. I quietly retreated from the bungalow, my mind racing. I had to make a decision, and I had to make it quickly. I couldn't endure another heartbreak, not after the pain Jane had caused me. As I packed my belongings in a hurry, I could hear Emma's voice calling my name and her tone filled with worry. But I didn't respond. I left her stranded on that island, with no way to contact me or get back home. It was a rash decision, but I couldn't bear to face the woman who had shattered my trust so callously. As I stood on the dock, waiting for the next boat off the island, I received frantic calls and text messages from Emma. Her pleas and apologies filled my phone, but I didn't answer. My heart was encased in ice, and I couldn't bring myself to forgive or forget. One of the island's locals approached me, concern etched on his face. "Sir, are you okay? Is there something I can do to help?" I shook my head, my voice hollow. "No, thank you. I just need to get off this island." The boat arrived and I boarded it, leaving behind the woman who had broken my heart for the second time. It was a decision I would come to regret. But at that moment, it was the only way I knew to protect myself from further pain and betrayal. As the boat pulled away from the island, I couldn't help but wonder what the future held for Emma and me. The honeymoon, meant to be a celebration of our love, had become a stark reminder of the fragility of trust and the scars of betrayal. As I left the idyllic island of our disastrous honeymoon, I couldn't help but wonder what fate had in store for Emma. I had left her stranded, without a way to contact me or return home, my heart still heavy with the pain of her betrayal. Emma, on the other hand, found herself in a nightmare of her own making. She had woken up from her afternoon rendezvous to find me and our belongings gone. Panic had seized her, and she rushed to the bungalow's entrance only to discover that I had taken her passports, money, and even her phone. Frantic and alone, Emma had no choice but to seek help from the resort staff. However, without identification or means of communication, her situation grew increasingly dire. She was locked out of her hotel room, unable to pay for her meals, and had no way to contact her family or friends for assistance. Days turned into a week, and Emma's desperation deepened. She wandered the island aimlessly, her once vibrant spirit now crushed under the weight of her actions. She approached tourists and locals begging for help, but her pleas fell on deaf ears. It seemed that her reputation had preceded her. One evening, as the sun began to dip below the horizon, Emma found herself stranded on a desolate stretch of beach. Her tears mingled with the salt water as she reflected on the choices that had led her to this point. A kindly older couple, vacationing on the island, stumbled upon Emma's plight. Concerned for her well-being, they approached her with empathy. The woman spoke gently, her voice filled with compassion. "Are you all right, dear? You look like you could use some help." Emma, her face streaked with tears, hesitated for a moment before finally opening up. "I messed up. My husband left me here, and I have no way to get home." The man exchanged a knowing glance with his wife before he offered assistance. "We can help you contact your family or friends. It's not safe for you to be stranded like this." Over the next few days, the couple helped Emma reach out to her family, who arranged for her to return home. The journey was fraught with difficulties, as Emma had to rely on the kindness of strangers to survive. Meanwhile, back home, I had moved out and completely severed ties with Emma. Our brief marriage had ended in ruins, and there was no turning back. I was determined to heal and move forward, leaving behind the painful memories of our honeymoon betrayal. Emma's failure served as a sobering reminder of the results of her deeds. She would pay a price for her treachery, and her dire circumstances mirrored the mayhem she had unleashed. Our lives had taken different turns, and there was no turning back to the period when our love had been pure and unadulterated.